Hey friends, I just thought I would pop on here to show you a little bit of a food haul. So background to this is I'm now moving into the unpaid part of my maternity leave, so we got to make some cutbacks on a few different things. And so as part of that, I have signed up to, one of them's a subscription with a company called Sophia, and they do the community larders. And then there's also the Milton Keynes community fridge, and that one's free. And both of these organisations are designed to reduce waste within the supermarket sector. Supermarkets can't sell them, it's got to be used. They'll give it for free to these community centres, and these community groups will redistribute that food so that it doesn't go to waste. So the Sophia one is £18 a month for a single person. I just got it for a single person. You can do it for a family, it's a bit more expensive, but I didn't necessarily see the point of that. So yeah, I'm just going to show you everything I got between those two companies. Not all of it is brands that I would normally buy, but I do make it a rule that it's always stuff that we would normally eat, because I don't want it to go to waste, just because there's no point in it coming out of the waste stream from a supermarket, coming into my home and then going into my own waste stream because I've not used it. So I do follow, they're called the full freezer method. So anything that I think is looking a bit interesting, I'll cut the dodgy bits off. I will either use it that day or I will freeze it so that we can use it another day and it doesn't go to waste. All right, so let me show you what I've got here. All right, do excuse the mess. I just opened my cupboard. So yes, as I say, it's not always the most pretty looking stuff. So like these potatoes that I got, mostly they're okay, but this one's got some bits that I'm going to have to cut off to get to the good bit. But it's such a decent sized potato, that will make enough mash for me and my husband. Everywhere seems to have grapes. So this one I got from the fridge today. This one I got from the larder. Excuse the strawberry tops, I was getting some for my son. Strawberries were there today. The other thing that I've noticed is that local growers, so people like myself actually, where we've got a glut of something and there's no way that we're going to be able to use it all, you can actually donate that food to your local fridge or to your local larder and they'll redistribute that food. So I have a feeling that this cabbage, this lettuce and this cauliflower have all come from that. These courgette definitely did come from one of those places, whereas this aubergine, that should have been 67p and I got it in my shop. So like I say, some things are brands that we wouldn't normally buy. So I would never normally buy Whole Earth crunchy peanut butter because normally we like smooth peanut butter, but we got it as part of a shop and now we use it. And then also Costa Coffee apparently had donated these maple flavoured sauce. So I've been having that in some coffee. That's really good. But I need to find some other uses because I've literally used like this much and there's still like loads left. So a lot of what these larders will do is they'll say you've got 8 items or 10 items that you can take from the fridge or from the shelf, or a certain amount of points that you can do. And so you get, like, for the fridge, I think it's 8 items. And then for the larder, that is 10 items. And it'll be a mix of stuff, but usually it's stuff that's about to turn. So these, I got 2 breads because I can put one of them in the freezer. These, I got some bagels. They'll go straight into the freezer. In fact, they're already frozen. I took them out of the freezer to show you this haul. Same with things like ready meals. I won't say no to them because I'll just chuck them in the freezer. They should have gone on the 18th of September. It's now the 27th of September. So they're old, but they're still good because I've frozen them in plenty of time. The other thing is the Sophia group. The other thing that they pay for with your subscription fee is something called Fair Share. And basically what this is they redistribute surplus food to charities. Great, that's what we're doing. And then with the Flex program, the Food Life Extension program, all of the surplus ingredients get turned into hearty, nourishing meals in a tin so that they don't go bad. So these are some tomato and red pepper soups, and these were free. These aren't part of your points. You just, sometimes they want to get rid of stuff. So basically, if there was excess vegetables, they'll send that back to their processing company. The processing company will turn that into soups, stews, whatever. So it's not going to go to waste. What I find really funny is, so for example, these Pringles. Now, I got these last week. They're obviously looking like they're Christmas Pringles. But if you look at the date on them, was, yeah, best before 12th December 2025. Now, I find it hilarious because they're still well within date. They just can't sell them because they've got Santa on. Ridiculous, but they're great. They're perfectly fine. So as I mentioned, I do follow the full freezer method. So what I do is I reuse all of these freezer bags. That's probably been used at least 15 times. I'm not going to lie, you can tell because of all the scratching on it. But any food that looks like it's about to go on the turn, I will chop it up. I will put it on a tray so that I can freeze it. And then once it's frozen, I'll put it into a baggie, and then it's sort of nice and loose. So that is frozen, but it's loose, so I can just take out however much I need for a recipe, and I can use that. Again, they had a big glut of peppers, so I stocked up, because with a lot of these places, the vegetables either just one of your items and they include all of your vegetables in it, or it's free. They don't count it at all. So you can take however much fruit and veg you like. So yeah, that is part one of how I am going to reduce my food costs.
So I'm just showing the first thing that I'm doing to try and prep our freezer. So I'm just going to wash this because this is celery that I grew in my garden. So a nice little bit of debris on it. Upside down. So this is celery that I grew. I forgot to blanch it, so it's quite dark, but still perfectly edible. It won't be as tender as some of the other pieces of celery that you'd get at the shop, because they blanch theirs, which just means that they've put something over it to stop the sun getting to the stalks while it's in those last few weeks. It goes nice and pale, gets very tender. But alas, you know, you live and learn. I didn't have time this year. Had a baby to look after, so in other years I'm sure it will get better. I was thinking, I saw on one channel, I can't remember the name of it. If I remember the name, I'll put it in the description. They do a lot of dehydrating food prep type things. Now, I found out the other day when I made my tomato sauce that I could actually use my oven as a dehydrator, because it does get low enough and it's got a fan, so it's absolutely perfect. And I'm wondering if maybe instead of freezing this, because I've already got some of this in the freezer from other weeks where I've saved onions and carrots from the community larder, if I don't just experiment with dehydrating this, I'm putting it in a jar and then using it from dried and just see if that actually works, because it would be helpful if that did. So that's my celery. I've got about that much. So I need about that much again of carrots, and then double that of onions for my mix. So if you look, this skin looked all dodgy. You probably, like, if you went to the supermarket and saw these carrots, you wouldn't spend money on them because they're a bit ugly. You know, and that's just the fact of it. I I wouldn't necessarily buy these in the shop, unless it was like in a packet of wonky veg and I wasn't buying them full price. If I was getting a good deal on them, maybe I'd spend a bit of money on them. And then inside, perfectly fine. Just take off the manky bits and you'll be alright. You won't perish. Doing it very quickly because I don't have a load of time. My son's just having a nap. My husband and my eldest are out seeing Grandpa today. So that's nice. Means I get a bit of quiet time to record. It's like having an extra nursery day. I might go down a bit further on that because it's got just had like a little bit of cracking, but I think possibly some germs might have got in there, so I don't want to put that in my mix, preferably. The other thing I would say about all of this veg is, I've heard it going around, oh, you can use your veg scraps to make stock. These I would not, especially if you're cutting off a lot of manky stuff. Don't use those scraps to make stock. You know, when restaurants and stuff, they say, oh, you can use scraps to make stock. What they're talking about are like, they've got high quality veg, they've prepped it, same as I'm doing now, and there's lots of high quality scraps left. They're not talking about your manky scraps. So if you try and do it with your manky scraps, it's not going to work, it's not going to taste good. Believe me, I've tried that, and I just, personally, I don't think making your own stock is actually worth it. I see lots of people going, oh yeah, don't waste your scraps, you can use those. But if I don't like the taste of something, I'm not going to use it, it's going to go to waste anyway. And then that's pointless, isn't it? So here, this has got a big crack, and this end is quite squishy, which is why it's not peeled properly. So I'm just going to chop all of that off, and then where it's got the crack, I'm just going to see how far down that crack goes. So it's already gone just by cutting off that thin sliver. And then the rest, absolutely fine. And just chop that in. Let's see, I think possibly this carrot might be enough. I do sometimes, like if I'm making a shepherd's pie, I'll use the stalk of broccoli or any leftover kind of root veg. So swede's gone into shepherd's pie before. I've put broccoli stems, I put turnip into it, beetroot. I love a good shepherd's pie because you don't have to follow rules. Just because they say to put in carrots, celery, onion and peas doesn't mean that you have to stick to carrots, celery, onions and peas. Now, I'm just going to give this a quick blitz because it's all the hard stuff and my onions, they'll blitz in minutes and I want to make a bit of room for the onions. Okay, so that's just blitzed and now I can probably fit my onions in there. So I reckon based on how much I've got in there, I probably need the same again of onions. Again, I'm not doing anything fancy, I'm just cutting it up enough that the blender can do the rest of the work. I need to find out if you need to saute or blanch your veg in any way before you dehydrate it, or if you can just dehydrate it raw. I feel like maybe it wouldn't turn out very nice if you tried to dehydrate it raw. Yes. Hey, do you need to saute veg before you dehydrate it?
On the website backpackingchef.com, they say, tips for dehydrating vegetables. Bell peppers, tomatoes, mushrooms and onions do not need pre-cooking before drying them. All you have to do is wash them, cut uniformly and spread in a single layer on dehydrated trays.
So the onions are good. Hey, do you have to saute carrots before you dehydrate them?
On the website thespruceeats.com, they say, blanch the sliced carrots for 2 minutes. You can do this in a steamer or in boiling water. You can also skip this step, but your final product will lose the bright orange colour of the carrots. Also, the blanching step makes the carrots rehydrate quicker when you get around to using them.
I think I might saute this and then I'll put it on my tray and dehydrate it from there, just so that I kind of feel like, yeah, it's going to be all right, because I don't know what's going to happen to the texture. I feel like doing a little bit of sauteing might just help. Now, I don't think it will work if I saute in fat, so I'm just going to saute in a bit of water. It'll be fine, as long as I don't sort of lose track of it. It won't stick. So I'll just get my saucepan out ready for sauteing these a little bit, and then I can get them onto my tray to dehydrate. Oh, there is a bliss of oil in this pan just because it's cast iron. I'm just going to wipe off any excess. Tell just from having separated out the onions, I don't think I have quite enough, so I'm just going to do another small one, and then that should be okay. Was a strong one. Okay. So this is what I've got. It's just a mix of carrot, celery, and onions. And this is the base of every good thing that you know. It's the base of nice risottos. It's the base of a good lasagna, of a good chili. Just anything you like. Shepherd's pie. I basically put it in anything mincy. Yeah. I literally put it in everything, and it tastes good. It's kind of I think it's a French invention, but every culture has their own. I do find it funny that the French and the Italian ones are exactly the same, except that the Italian one uses olive oil and the French one uses butter, which just feels very apt. I just realised I missed a couple of bits of onion, and I can't be bothered to go back and do those. I'm sure it'll be fine. So just going to put a little heat through this, and so as I say, I'm not putting any oil in this, but if I think it needs a bit of lubrication, I'll just get the kettle and add a bit of water and that'll be fine. These vegetables will just let out a lot of their own water anyway. That might up. Should I dehydrate onions and carrots?
On the website backpackingchef.com, they say, dehydrate onions at 135 degrees Fahrenheit for 8+ hours. Dehydration times can be longer depending on room humidity, amount of food in the dehydrator, and dehydrator model used.
I'll just use a good oven. Oh, it does smell nice. I think they are starting to cook a bit. I love that smell. Yeah, I don't think I'll need to add any extra water to this because it's giving out a lot of its own water. Okay, I feel like all of my veg has now softened a bit, so I'm just going to get it onto this tray. I'm wondering if I might need to do 2 trays to make sure that it stirs. No, I think it'll be fine, because I'll just go back to it and give it a stir around and make sure that all of the bits are drying evenly. Besides, I need the tray for something else. My next project. Perfectly. I'm just going to spread this out so that it goes right to the edges, because even though I am just being a bit lazy and only using 1 tray, I want to get the best use out of that tray. Okay. So we shall see if this experiment works, because if it does, you know, then I've potentially saved quite a bit of freezer space, because this mix, whilst I do use it a lot, it does take up quite a bit of freezer space. So if I can dehydrate it instead of freeze it, then I've saved a lot of space, and I can use that space for things like bread and meat that I can't dehydrate. Well, I suppose I could dehydrate bread and just make breadcrumbs. Maybe. Okay, and into the dehydrating oven. And that honey's how long? I think it's a few hours. I'll just keep checking on it every so often. Every hour I'll just go in and give it a stir, make sure that it's drying out evenly. And then once it's fully dry, I'll check it and I'll chuck it into a couple of jars. So yeah, I'm going to tidy up now.
Okay, so I dehydrated these for around 13 hours in the end. I don't know if I went too far, but I think I actually forgot about them. But they're nice and crunchy. So I'm just going to pop them in this jar and we'll see how much space it takes up compared to what I normally stash in my freezer. And just comparing the two, that's how much space that normally takes up in my freezer. I sort of lay it flat, and then I break it into chunks and I put it in this bigger bag. So this is about 2, well, I've used some actually, two containers worth compared to, I guess, that. Now, what I will do before I go ahead and dehydrate that is I'm going to test this out and make sure that it actually works as what I intend it to work. I am going to rehydrate it in some chicken broth so that I can get an idea of, you know, because I'm the kind of person, I'll just chuck it into a meal and then rehydrate it with whatever liquid I'm going to use for that meal, so it gets a lot more flavour. So it seems only fair that when I rehydrate this, I need to rehydrate it with stock. So you can see it's rehydrated nicely. It's been soaking in the water just for about 10 minutes or so while I emptied the dishwasher. So I'll try that. That's pretty good. It's got a crunchy texture still. I imagine if you were cooking it into something for longer, that would just be normal texture. It's not chewy or hard or anything like that. So I think it's rehydrated well, which is amazing. It's delicious. Hard to tell if that's the amount of bouillon that I've got in this or if it's the carrot, celery and onion, but they do taste good. So I think that settles it. I'm going to go get all of the stuff from the freezer and I'm actually going to dehydrate it and get it all into a jar instead, because I have slightly more space in my cupboards than I do in my freezer. And I like the freezer for things that I probably wouldn't rehydrate, things like green beans. I probably wouldn't dehydrate and rehydrate, and things like that. So I'm gonna go and do that today. Okay, so I'm coming on to show you something that I was very surprised at when I came out into the garden. I was just admiring my snapdragons because they put on some new flowers, which is really lovely. And I was looking and I thought, ooh, what's that? What's that in between my snapdragons? That's saffron, the most expensive spice in the world. And I am going to harvest my very first saffron for the very first time. So excited. Here we go. Boop. And that's why it's so expensive, because you get 3 stamens of saffron for every flower that you plant. But I'm pretty sure this only cost me, I want to say maybe £10 for a bag of bulbs that I just put in, and I just wait. I wait each year for this to happen and just sneak in and get, and it smells absolutely amazing. It's the most expensive spice in the world, and I have grown it for less than 20 quid. Anyway, another way I'm saving money in the garden this year. Good afternoon, friends. So we're coming to the end of our pantry challenge. Technically we are already over because it is now December, but I have only just got around to cooking this meal, which is a meal that's based on using up and stretching what we have. And so I thought it would fit in really well with this pantry challenge video, partly because I wanted you to see how I'm going to use this. So obviously you can tell it's half empty now. We've used it for risottos and things. We've had a nice mushroom risotto. So these are winter chanterelle mushrooms that I picked and I dehydrated. And so we basically got, like, do excuse the random jars. I was running out of jars, but we've got quite a few of these winter chanterelles. So that's kind of like a year's supply. You can easily do that if you get a decent forest in Sweden. Go chanterelle picking, dry them out, and then get basically a year's supply of mushrooms, which is quite nice. And so I wanted to finish off this video by making a few things with, so this is the beef mince that I showed in the very beginning of the video. I managed to actually get another one, so there's one 15% fat, one 5% fat, but that'll be fine. They're both beef mince. But then what I'm doing is I saw a trick from another creator called Cassandra over at Becoming a Farm Girl, and I was like, oh, that's such a good idea, because beef mince is getting ridiculously expensive right now, whereas other mince isn't. So what other mince am I going to cut this with, I hear you ask? Turkey thigh mince. Very nice. And we've got some chicken mince. And, oh, I do have some lamb mince that I got reduced, but I don't want to use that in this because I don't actually think the flavour will work, beef and lamb, because lamb's quite a strong flavour. And I've also got some pork mince. Now, traditionally, I would put some sort of pork in my lasagna anyway, so pork mince is going to work lovely for that. So that's what I'm going to put in there. And then the other thing I'm going to do, because I've got it and I want to use it up, is I don't know if anyone else does this, but I do, which is I've got broccoli and I've got the broccoli stems that I'm keeping. I'm going to chop off the bits of broccoli here. I'll put them in a Tupperware ready to use for a meal, but I will take off the woodier skin and then I'll just grate it into my mince. So again, it stretches that mince a little bit further and it just adds some extra nutrition for my kids. If I had courgette, I'd use courgette, or Americans call it a zucchini. And yeah, just sneak extra veggies in there wherever I can. And then these are the tomatoes that I actually grew in my garden. I turned them into sauce and packaged it up in individual portions. So I could take them out individually and make, you know, chilli or shepherd's pie, but I'm going to use it all here and make a huge batch of mince. The other thing that I'm going to do while I'm here prepping stuff at the counter is I've got some of these plums that I got from the pantry. So they're completely free, but my youngest is weaning now, and I got these off Facebook Marketplace. They're just little kind of chunky ice cubes, so you could use them for ice cubes, or you can use them for what I'm going to do, which is small portions of pureed fruits that then will go in the freezer, and we just chuck them into his porridge in the morning. So every morning he has a different flavour porridge, which is quite nice for him, and it just means that any fruit that I get that I haven't been able to use up, I'll just chuck it in the freezer, and then when I'm ready, I can make some puree for him. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. So I put the plums into my saucepan, bit of water underneath, just like I do with my apples and my pears, except this time because they were frozen solid, I didn't have a chance to get the pips out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain this into here. Now that they're nice and defrosted and soft, I just want to get the seeds out first. So my strategy for this, I should have thought of this before really, is to just jiggle a knife around until I find them. Why? What is my life? Why am I doing this? There we go. Do you know what? I need a little bowl. Oh, like even a little love heart bowl for you. And then once I feel certain that I've gotten all of the pips out, I'm going to just whisk it with the blender and then pour it into my moulds. And then I'll put that in the freezer. And my youngest will enjoy that a lot with his porridge. So he has enjoyed, what's he tried so far? He's tried nectarine, really liked that one. Banana's his favourite, standard babies love banana. Apples and pears, he's enjoyed them all right, but not as much as the banana. And then this will be the first time that he's trying some plums. So I like to give him a good variety. There are, I need to remind my husband, because he's the one that feeds them. He's on paternity leave right now. I've gone back to work, if you didn't know. And that is actually the reason, apologies, that my videos have slowed down. I probably should have put some sort of message on the group, but I just didn't have time. So what my days are looking like right now is I'm working long days. I condensed my hours, which means I'm working 8 till 6 on like a Tuesday to Friday. And then Mondays I'm studying because we still want to go to Sweden. I still need to have a career when we're out there. And so I still need to study my coaching course and finish that up. So I've got Mondays mornings for that. And then I've got my son on a Monday afternoon who I take out just for a little bit of respite and because he wants some one-on-one mummy time. That is the biggest thing actually, because the very first week I went back full time, I went back just plain Monday to Friday 9 till 5, and he struggled so much with his behaviour that weekend. It was like, he's generally a very good boy. This weekend he was not. I thought he was someone else's son for a bit. And yeah, I think it just brought home, actually, I need to be really on it with spending individual time with him. So Monday afternoons, that's our time together. And my husband will look after our youngest. He can't this week because he is a bit poorly. So I'm going to have both of them on our Monday afternoon trip. And I don't know how my eldest is going to handle that. We'll find out, I guess. I think it should be fine. But, you know, it's always a bit of a gamble with these things because it's not his time, you know. I've got to be between the two of them. So we shall see what his behaviour is like this week. I'm hoping it will be okay. The thing I love so much about using broccoli stems is, look, that's all the vegetable and you're just not letting it go to waste. That's the only difference. And it's perfectly edible. Obviously you want to take off any tougher bits, but otherwise you can eat all of that. I have a load of broccoli in my garden but it's not really turning into anything. I am just leaving it there, just out of curiosity to see what happens. Like, will it come back a bit better in the spring and I'll be able to harvest it in the spring maybe? Who knows? If not, I can always harvest the stems still, and I can still eat those and do exactly what I'm doing here, which is to peel them, chop them up into small bits and use them just like a carrot. So the nice thing is because I made the carrot, celery and onion mix a couple of months ago, and I did it all in one go, the only chopping that I have to do for this is this, which is quite nice. I find it quite mindful being able to kind of just chop things. Although, if it was for like the mix, I did use my chopper. Just because there was too much there, I was too lazy. I'm very excited. We've got a Christmas bring and share, and our Swedish friends sent us a book when our youngest was born called Fika the Swedish Way, because they knew we were thinking about moving over to Sweden, having a little tryout. So they got us a little book of baking. It comes out every year, Fika the Swedish Way, and people from all over Sweden enter their recipes and they get voted on, and then the best make it into this book. So I'm going to be making a few little Swedish inspired soft breads, or sweetbreads, I guess you'd call them. I think I always get confused with sweetbreads because that's technically an organ as well. But I mean like cinnamon rolls, or I'm going to be making cardamom rolls. That's going to be a nice one. And then I'm also going to make some saffron buns with the saffron that we grew in our garden. So that's very exciting. I think it's just really nice being able to like use stuff that you've grown. I get a weird kick out of it, like that carrot, celery and onion mix. The onions and the celery came from my garden, and I'm looking forward to being able to put that into my family's food, because I know exactly where it's come from, exactly what it's had on it, which is nothing. It's completely organic, more by accident, more forgetfulness to treat any pest issues. But you know, I've ended up with organic celery. I've still got some in the garden I actually need to tear out. I haven't got around to doing a lot of gardening recently, just because of work. I did, and the weather really, because I did manage to get out at the beginning of November, and I sifted a load of compost from the wood chip that was out there. So I'd say it's probably a mix of mushroom compost, leaf mulch and decomposted wood chip. And it's meant that I'm not planning to buy any compost this year, except for, I think I might buy a little bit of seed starting compost, because I'm not sure what I've got is suitable for seed starting. So I might get some coconut coir to start my seeds in. So that's my broccoli, and I'm just going to get some heat on this, and a good glug of olive oil. We'll need to get some more of that actually. So I've got my deep pot here just because I do want to put all of my different minces in. And as I say, I got this tip over from Cassandra at Becoming a Farm Girl. I really love her channel because I think what she inspires people to do is just start where you're at. I never used to do any of this stuff, but
over the years I just picked up things from different channels about, you know, how to preserve different things. Let's start with our chicken, and then I've got turkey thigh mince. I'm going to turn this down actually because I don't want anything to burn. I just wanted it to come up to temperature quickly. And then we've got our mince. They're still a bit solid, so I think what I'm going to do, because this will have a lot of time to cook down anyway. Oh, that was her name. I follow the full freezer method. This is not full freezer method approved, I'm not gonna lie. But I didn't get out my mince in time to make this recipe apparently. And I think what I like about the thought of this is, so it's quite traditional for Swedish meatballs to use pork mince and beef mince together. I reckon you could very easily tuck some turkey and chicken mince in there. The chicken mince is cheaper, I would say, than the turkey mince. So when I bought these, I think the pork mince was $2.50 for 500 grams. The turkey was £4.50 for 500 grams. And then the chicken was £2.55 for 500 grams. So I think if you're thinking about mixing meats, then you could very easily make it very, very cheap. The other thing that you can mix, and I used to do a lot more of this, is beans, lentils, and mushrooms. I used to bulk out all of my meat with lentils and mushrooms, and then it turns out I'm an IBS girly, so we had to put an end to that pretty quick. But it definitely used to reduce the cost. So what I'm starting here with is making my base mince, and what I'll do is I'll put it in Tupperwares so that we can use it for anything. San Marzano tomatoes. Although I have got a couple of different ones to try next year, which is exciting. So at this point in the cooking, I'm just making it without any salt because I'm going to take some aside and give it to my youngest. He's only just started weaning. I think up to the first year you have to be really careful about any added salt. So I'm going to take it out and then I'll add any salt. That's really right. I'm going to add my seasonings. Just lots and lots of garlic. So my basic mince recipe, I do include the garlic because anything that I would be making with this, I would be putting garlic in anyway. Saves me a step later. Second. I'm really curious to know, sorry, just completely out of the blue, what other YouTube channels you guys would recommend and watch. And also just to see, like, you know, with my viewers, I've got 25 now, thank you by the way if you've subscribed recently. What other channels do you watch? Because I know a lot of you guys are from America, which is quite interesting that I fall into that category. But yeah, what other channels do you watch? Do you like? Personally, I'm a big fan of, as I mentioned, Becoming Farm Girl, Acre Homestead, Wild We Roam, they're really good. SV Delos, I think, was the one that my husband introduced me to first and kind of was what got me into following people and people's stories on YouTube. And then I also follow things like, I think his name's Just Alex, he's like a local guy just trying out different things in the garden. I kind of connect with him because I feel like we're on a similar journey. Like, we're not experts, we're just trying stuff out and interested in quite similar things. So he's just started growing mushrooms and keeping bees, and they're both things that in the future I would like to be able to do. I think at the moment I'm not sure that my husband would be very happy if I turned our conservatory into a mushroom grow room. So I kind of feel like we need another shed to do that, if I'm honest, that I could turn into a grow room. So maybe that's more of a Sweden dream, when we get somewhere that has a little bit of land and extra shed and things like that. That would be nice. So that's my mince. Just making sure that it's all chopped up because it tends to clump together and then cook together. And I don't want that in my ragu. Yeah, I guess it is more of a ragu than a beef mince because it's got all these different meats in. So, it smells lovely because of all of the garlic that I've got in there. I'm also just going to chuck in my tomato. It will defrost in the pan. I'm going to add water as well, so it will defrost with that quite easily. And I think I'm just going to use all of these because it's quite a lot of mince. I've got about 2.5 kilos of mince in here between the 5 packets, 4 different types of mince that I've got in there. So I'll just give that a wash because that will not go to waste. They're very good quality bags. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my carrot, celery and onion mix and I'm just going to chuck it on the top. This is as hard as my chopping veg got. I did put quite a lot of mince in there, so I might actually use probably about that much. Save a little bit for future Amy to make a risotto with. Now, because I dehydrated this, it will expand, and I do also need to add a lot more water to this mix to let it fully rehydrate. So I'm just going to add a little bit and then add more if I feel like it needs a bit more later. Just gets mixed in. Oh, it smells lovely. My pan is getting rather full, but I think it's still just about fitting everything in. I don't think I need to change the pan just yet. Now I'm going to add my basic spices. that I would probably add to any mince. So again, just saving myself a step down the line, making sure that this mince tastes really good. So garlic, yes, I use fresh and dried together. I think they give the meal a little bit of a fuller flavour of the garlic. I'm just obsessed with garlic. Are you one of these people who can't taste my food unless it's got garlic in? Might need a bit more later, but we'll just see how we go. Good morning, another day, another recipe for our pantry challenge. And so one of the really nice things I like about going to the community larder is that there's always lots of free, fresh vegetables. This week it was peppers, and I did not get a good harvest from my peppers this year from my garden. So I hadn't had a chance to make hot sauce this year when I normally would. So I thought, oh, I'll take the opportunity now and I'll make hot sauce with the free peppers. So I've got about 330 grams-ish, about 12 ounces if you're in America. And this recipe, I can't remember where I learnt it from. I learned it a few years ago. It's nice and easy. It's just about 12 ounces. See, I must have got it from an American YouTuber. About 12 ounces of chilies, 2 cups of vinegar, 6 to 7 garlic. I'm just going to put in the rest of my homegrown garlic, and a small onion, or half a large onion if you've got that. So I'm going to get that all in the pot. I'm going to cook it down until everything's nice and soft, and then I'm going to chuck it in my blender and bottle it up and then stick that in my fridge. And that will last us probably a year. Our last batch lasted about a year. So that's nice. So I'm just going to crack on with that. So as I say, I've got my 12 ounces. I did just weigh them out, so that's why they were there. This is more of a kind of Tabasco type hot sauce where it's a bit vinegary, and that's what is going to preserve the hot sauce long term. But you can, you know, if you want, add about 2% salt and make kind of a 2% salt brine and ferment your peppers, and then you'll get more of like a sriracha type hot sauce. So it's kind of, I guess, similar in that sense. But yeah, we just got different things to preserve the chilies in the hot sauce. And I've been sort of experimenting with a lot of different preservation techniques just to keep things, you know, you don't want things to go to waste. So, and the freezer's great and all, but there's only so much space that you have in a freezer for things. So it's nice to have some options available to you. So I'm not cutting this very small, just about the same size as the chilies that I've got in my pan. Just pop that in there as well. And then I'm going to cut up all my garlic. I'm going to speed this bit up for you, don't worry. You're not going to have to sit through me chopping a load of garlic. But again, I'm literally just going to peel it and chuck it in whole because this is all going in the blender anyway. So it does not need to be anything fancy. And if anyone knows me, you know that I'm a very not fancy person. I often like to find the easiest and the quickest way to do something safely. I don't know if you can see behind me on my windowsill, I've got my coleslaw kraut. It's just like sauerkraut, but it's got some onions and some carrots in there. Because I mostly use my sauerkraut to make fresh coleslaw. So I thought, well, I've got carrots that need preserving as well. I might as well just make it all together. So that's probably going to take a couple of weeks. I didn't record that for you, sorry. I can do a separate video on that the next time I make sauerkraut. But again, you know, I get all these vegetables free from the pantry, and you can take as much as you want. I did said to them, because they had like 2 huge crates of tomatoes, like fresh tomatoes. And I said, morally speaking, like, how many is too many for me to take? And they were like, no, please take as many as you can, because otherwise it just goes to waste. It goes towards their like soup making project. So it doesn't like go completely to waste, but it just comes back with them and they turn it all into soup. So they really don't mind you taking as much as you like. Now I will say though, I am quite like limited on how many bananas I take, because I could probably take loads of bananas, but I know that there are other families there and their families like bananas too, and there's usually only 1 crate of bananas. And so yeah, I'll only ever take what we need for those, but when they've got 2 crates of something. So I was there the other day. It was quite nice actually. My husband and my mother-in-law were just sat here chatting, and I was just there chopping tomatoes into chopped tomatoes so that we don't have to buy chopped tomatoes, like tinned tomatoes from the shop. And they're in our freezer now. So yeah, they're already prepped. I just break off whatever I need for a recipe. I was trying to think what else I made the other day. Oh, I mean, you've seen this recipe before. I made some more pickled red onions because, again, they had loads of red onions. I took about 12 and I still got some sitting in my cupboard for salads and things. But yeah, I'm going to try and see. Although technically the November pantry challenge is over because it is December now, we saved so much money. We saved at least £200, maybe a bit more. And I was just so taken aback by that. But the thing is, we don't necessarily need to buy anything else. So I'm just going to see how long I can keep it going, doing the same thing, basically just not buying anything unless we've kind of gone to the pantries first, seeing what we can get, and then like fill in any gaps as needed from the shop. And I think that's probably the best way to make the most use of these kind of pantries, is go, what do I really need? Can I get it from the pantry? And then what do I have to fill in gaps with? So we haven't bought peanut butter in months because, again, we ran out of that first jar of peanut butter. I was trying to find it for you. So it was this one, the Whole Earth. We ran out of the first one. By the time that we'd run out of it, I went back to the pantry and they had it in stock again, which was quite nice. So we've not had to buy peanut butter in like 2 months or something, even though we eat it quite a lot in our house. So I think it's, yeah, seeing what you can kind of get filled in. Again, we've not brought many vegetables in a couple of months. No potatoes, no carrots, no onions, no butternut squash or pumpkin or anything. We've just got it, seen what they had, planned our meals around it, and then filled in any gaps as needed. And then the other thing that we've done is, you know, I talked before earlier in the video about how we use the full freezer method, and we'll kind of prep stuff and either you put it in our freezer ready prepped. So not necessarily like as a meal, because I actually find meal prepping, the way that it's done, where you make the actual meals, incredibly boring. I don't know if it's like just the way that my brain works, but I like cooking what I want to make that day. I have to be really in the mood for what I'm going to eat. So if I've kind of made it all in advance and then I'm not in the mood, it could just be in the freezer for months and months till I'm like ready to eat it. And I just don't like that. I'd rather have ingredients prepped and ready and just be able to go, right, dump a bit of this in, dump a bit of that in. So like yesterday we had beef curry. I used some of the chopped tomatoes that I'd made. We used some of the prepped peppers that we had earlier in the season. I already showed you in this video. Put in some green beans, frozen again, and beef chunks that I basically had a huge roast and I just cut it up myself and then have it in the freezer in portions. Added some curry paste cubes and then added some of the free coconut milk powder that we had from the pantry. So, you know, and I've kind of managed to bring a meal together just from those things. So I think overall our meal yesterday probably cost, you know, I want to say about £1 each, because I'm pretty sure I got the rice from the pantry as well. I think it's getting to that kind of season again, the way that our grandparents, you know, made things stretch and made do, and you just make it work, don't you? When there's the economic reality is that you've got to make things stretch a little bit further, and the kitchen in my mind is the easiest place to do that. Although I will also say we managed to cut down our heating bill because our service provider was overcharging us in the summer in order to kind of prepare for the winter, and we were like, hey, we're not actually okay with that. We would prefer to just pay for what we're using each season. And I get, you know, why people would want to do that, but we had so much credit in that heating account, we could have paid for 2 winters, you know? They just did not need to be looking after that amount of money for us. And so we went to the heating company and we said, look, this is not realistic for us right now. We've got so much credit. Can we put it down to like a minimum? And they were like, well, probably like 50 quid is what we would say, based on, you know, how much credit you've got with us. Because we did have quite a lot of credit. So our heating bill's gone down to 50 quid a month, which is quite nice considering it's winter. But yeah, so do check how much credit you've got with your heating company. See if you can take down your monthly direct debits. I have a friend who would prefer to be in debt with the heating company. And so they'll literally pay the minimum. They'll go into debt over winter, you know, a little bit, but then in summer they'll continue paying the minimum. So I guess we've kind of done the opposite, where in summer we've overpaid, and we've gone in credit with the heating company, and now we're just paying the minimum rather than going into debt. But it depends what your kind of perspective is, you know. It does tend to even out, and if you're kind of trying to make ends meet, it's kind of okay to go into debt a little bit, just as long as you know that you will eventually pay that over the summer when your heating bill goes down. So I'm going to get the pan on the hob now. So I don't know if you can see this. Probably not. There you go. And I'm not going to put it on too high. I'm just going to put it on like 5, because it is just vinegar in there. So if it gets too hot, you know, you've just got acid steam in your face. And I'm going to simmer it for about 20 minutes. But what I'm looking for when I take this off is for everything to be nice and soft. And yeah, that's what we're kind of looking for. And then we'll chuck it in the blender and we'll add some extra seasonings. So I'll see you in a minute. Oh, randomly, while I'm here, I was just thinking I might show you this coleslaw kraut and how I've done it. So this is a trick that I got from, I'll have to put the name of the guy. He's really big into his ferments. And he says if you get a clip top jar and then like a hairband, so instead of clipping it and holding it all tight where it could explode with the pressure, you just get a hairband. And what this does is it means that when the air gets too high, it sort of self-burps, pushes it up, self-burps, lets a bit of the air out, and it goes back down. So it's quite a nice way of being able to kind of have it in the background, because it's going to take about 2 to 6 weeks. I'll taste it after 2 and see if it's enough. And if it is, I'll take the hairband off, clip it shut, put it in the fridge to stop that fermentation. And that'll be really yummy. And then the other thing I did with this, because I don't actually have a fermenting weight, I think it's called. I just used, you see it's quite far down, I used a, you know, one of those goo like pudding pots, just reused it, put it in there. I thought, that works. Keeps the vegetables underneath the brine, so it's quite nice. So we'll see how that tastes. We'll have a taste of that together in a couple of weeks. Okay, so my hot sauce is nice and soft, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get them into my mixer. And to that mix, so this is the vinegar, onions, garlic and chilies, just that. And to that I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, a couple of tablespoons of lemon juice, it's about half a lemon, and 1 teaspoon of oil. Make sure you get your lid on before you start whizzing. Okay, and that's whizzed up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my jug and my sieve, and I'm going to sieve this through so that we have a nice smooth hot sauce. Now, don't worry if you get a lot of bits left over. Obviously I've tried to blend it as smooth as I can, but anything that's left over I can just put on a little tray and I can dehydrate that in the oven and use it as chili pepper. Okay, so I managed to get all of my sauce sieved. So again, this is very much like Tabasco, it's quite a runny hot sauce. So I'm going to use our Frank's Red Hot things that we've saved over the years. I'm going to see how many of these I can fill. Okay, so we were coming to the end of the challenge and I just wanted to give you a little breakdown of how much we actually saved by doing this November Pantry challenge. And we've got a few different things that we did to save money. So first you can see here we've got the community larder. Now we pay a little subscription to that, it's £18 a month, but when I calculated what I'd saved based on if I'd have bought those goods from the shop, we saved about £200. So total savings, £182 because I'm going to be honest. Then the other thing that I do is I do food shops, so I buy when things are really cheap, so that's the deals, and then also I buy reduced stuff from if I need it and I'll put it in my freezer. Again, so I'm getting it a lot cheaper than it would normally be in the shop, and this is approximately how much we saved this particular month, about £200 on that. The other thing that we did, obviously, I foraged some food this month, and some of that food would have been really, really expensive without having done if you were to buy those things in the shop. So I think we worked out we saved about 50 quid there. And then obviously we were doing a November pantry challenge, no spend challenge, so we weren't eating out. Normally we'd get takeaway maybe once or twice a month, so I've averaged it out to about £100 that we saved. Obviously we didn't spend anything because we didn't go out. And then the other thing that my husband did for us was he negotiated our gas bills. I think I briefly mentioned it earlier in the video, but we'd massively overpaid on our gas bills over the summer, and the gas company had a significant amount of credit in our name that they were able to just hold on to for us, and we didn't want that. We wanted to make use of that money, so we negotiated our bills to be 50 quid, so we saved about £150. We were paying £200 a month. And we also have an investment in a wind farm, and that is now paid for itself because we're getting the money off of our bills, our electric bills, and so our electric bills are actually lower. So even if you can't have solar on your house, you can still invest in a wind farm and have reduced electric bills. So in total, we spent £298 this particular month, and we saved around £700. With a total saving of £682. Now, I wanted to carry this on longer. Some things are obviously carrying on because we've negotiated lower payments on them. My husband also negotiated a lower payment on our internet bill as well.
but my husband said, no, it's December, I want to enjoy Christmas, so we aren't doing it for December. But I'm pretty sure that as soon as January rolls around, I'm going to be starting again on doing a bit more of a pantry challenge, just using up what we have, using what I can get from the community larder, and being really inventive with our cooking. So I just wanted to put this here, just these little tips that we use to save money on food, all of the strategies that we've used. So I'm going to leave them up there. But the other thing that we did was I made things and I preserved things that we still have access to right now. So we're still using those things to save money. We didn't use them all up because, there's only a certain amount of like chanterelles you can eat in a month, let's face it. And so we did preserve a lot of things from going to waste, and I think that's kind of something that I really enjoy. Is there's so much waste in the food system, so much waste, and a lot of these community larder kind of fair share companies, what they're doing is they're taking food that would have gone in the dumpster but is perfectly good to eat. There are sometimes like the supermarkets, they can't sell stuff legally if the outside packaging has been damaged during transit, for example. The food is still perfectly good to eat. And I remember one of the best deals that I got from my community larder was I won one of the raffles, which you can for some of the higher ticket items, and I won the topside beef rump joint that we're going to have for our Christmas dinner, and it cost me, if you calculated how much each item is based on your subscription, it cost me the equivalent of £1.80. It should have been £23. It's definitely worth signing up for something like that. But I hope that this video has given you some good ideas for how you can reduce your costs in your family. And I wish you the best for Christmas. Hej då.